shaped by a lot of factors, Trevor. So, for instance, the environment shapes us. Our experiences growing up, it shapes us. Whether they're good or bad, it shapes us.
Mm.
Um, I've heard of people that say, um, you know, I I don't touch alcohol because my dad abused alcohol, and you know, I sort of don't want to go down that way, for instance. And
Mm.
there are people that would say, well, my dad, he loved his drink, so I love my drink because, he brought me up with it, or if you're around him, you have to drink. So that sort of thing, and people still choose their own way. People still choose their own path in life. They still,
Mm.
regardless of how they brought up. I know it doesn't, eh, I know it does influence how a person's how a person turns out, in the long run. But I don't think it should be a yardstick for, for excusing behaviors that aren't societal, for instance, that are against the orderliness in the community, for instance. I don't think there's anything science can do about that. It's just, you could see somebody. All right, so for instance, you usually hear about shooters in America, and they'd say he was a quiet lad. He kept to himself. He didn't. He,
Yeah.
yeah, he didn't come from a troubled background. He just one day he switched, and that was it.
Mm.
Took a gun to school and shot up a lot of his schoolmates or something. So it's not something that's meant for us to understand as humans. It's beyond us. Um,
So do you think that behavior is just environmental then? You said obviously we're influenced by our environment. Is it just that, or does nature have a part in what we are as well?
it's not just environmental. Like I said, there's a lot of factors that shape us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just environmental because environmental can only go so far. For instance, if somebody is brought up in a quiet neighborhood, they might want a noisy adulthood when they grow up, for instance. They might think, you know what, it was too quiet for me, so I moved up
Yeah.
to a much more busier city, for instance, where, I can experience something different. So it's not just environmental, I think. And I'm not talking as an authority in that field. I'm not in any, I mean, none of us are, but it's just life, isn't it? We're just talking about life as we see it. Um,
Mm.
I think it's far deeper than that. I think it's far deeper than that. I think there's a lot of um there's an air. There's an air. People say there must be something in the water. I think there's something in the air. There's the air that we breathe, and it's contaminated. And I'm not talking about the literal air. I'm talking about the spiritual air that we breathe.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not clean. This, unless that is cleaned up, we're gonna have these, people that just break out of character. And even in the Mormon society, what's the Mormon? This there's this community in America that they don't even mix. They don't.
I think
Uh,
they're the Amish, aren't they, in
yeah,
Pennsylvania? Yeah.
that's the one. Even in the Amish community, we still
Yeah.
had we still had an instance where somebody went on a rampage and killed somebody else. And that's a community that is fairly
Mm.
peaceful. They try to maintain that peaceful lifestyle, but it's not up to them. It's not up to humans. Um, this is not a religious show by any means. So,
No.
so, so I'll just leave it there. It's just fairly
Mm,
peaceful. They try to maintain that peaceful lifestyle, but it's not up to them. It's not up to humans. Um, this is not a religious show by any means. So,
no.
so, so I'll just leave it there. It's not something that we can achieve with science. I think if we tried achieving it with science, we're going to end up creating more problems.
Mm.
I think,
So you wouldn't, if humans could genetically modify people where there's perhaps a negative aspect to a line of people's behaviour, if that
yeah,
could be genetically modified,
yeah.
as I say, to take away that negative aggressive behaviour and make them much calmer, would you go with that as a benefit to society, or do you think it's meddling in something we really shouldn't?
Yeah, it's happening right now, Trevor. It's happening
Yeah.
right now because when you look at children growing up, um, they've been given a lot of names. They've been given a lot of conditions,
Mm,
ADHD, and all that, hyperactive, hyper whatever, And psychologists, they all they all buy into it. And what do? They medicate these children, don't they? We do.
mm,
I don't say they. Let me not say they. Let's say
yeah.
we, as humans, we do in our
Yeah.
society. We medicate these children, and it never used to be like that. We never used to medicate children. When I was growing up, there was nothing like that. You
Mm,
were stubborn, it was fixed. Your dad
yeah.
would crack you over
Yeah.
the head, and tell you to stop what you're doing, and that was fixed. But now it's no longer like that, is it? It's, oh yeah, oh my son is got ADHD. And then what happens? You go to the doctor agrees with you. And then these pharmaceutical companies, what do? They're ready to
Mm.
sell. They're ready to sell their products, aren't they? They're like, yeah, yeah, we know we know what's going on. We'll fix it. Humans can't fix that. We can't. And what do? They give these kids drugs. Later in their teens, they're depressed. And that's why we have suicide rates. That's why we have
So
kids.
would you
Yeah,
so
go on.
would you not give them the drugs if that calms them down? Clearly ADHD, I think it went through phases in its early days of people said, well, it's no such thing really. It's just an aggressive, naughty child. But I
Yeah,
think I think most people probably would accept now that there is an attention deficit within some children and some adults, I guess,
yeah.
and that it is a very real, again, presumably a genetic element to them. So if that can be calming, medication can help and calm them down. Would you not say that's a good thing
I
for
would
their
say,
sake?
I would say, for argument's sake, I would say, let's try and fix the root cause of the
Mm,
problem, which is education, educate the parents,
yeah.
educate people. Let them know, because I think that if where there's a wherever there's a supply chain, right? Wherever there's a supply, there's money to be made. People would
Mm.
create the demand for it. It's just business. People would create the demand for it. And so if if you go to the doctors, there's these pharmaceutical companies, they've got reps everywhere. The reps will say,
Mm.
listen, yeah, if you prescribe 200, your commission is so and so. And what are you going to do? You're going
Do
to
you think
put,
that is that corruption? Do you think, or can it lead to corruption? I suppose it
yeah,
can, can't it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Um, because it's happening.